Yes, it's so nice to have you all here tonight for the Vicki and Carl Zeiger Insight Seminar for Appropriate. My name is Danielle Mages Amato. I'm the Director of New Plays and Dramaturgy here at the Globe. And I am very happy to welcome director, Steve H. Broadnax III.
Correct.
I'm going to get all the name parts right.
Hello, everyone.
Before we start talking, I want to have a little introduction so that you get a little idea of who Steve is. Steve is a director whose credits include Thoughts of a Colored Man on Broadway, Susan Laurie Parks as Sally and Tom at the Guthrie Theater in the Public in New York, Katori Hall's 2021 Pulitzer Prize premiere, The Hot Wing King at Signature Theater, Lee Edward Colston's The First Deep Breath at Geffen in Los Angeles and at the Victory Garden in Chicago, Dominique Morisseau's Sunset Baby, and many others. He is an associate artistic director at People's Light Theater and a professor of theater at Penn State, co-head of the MFA program in directing there.
Yeah, that sounds really cool, right?
It does.
I listened back out that and I can't believe it. It's me. Me? Okay, yeah.
Well, before we start to talk about the play, I would love to talk just a little bit about your own background, Steve, and how you ended up as a theater director. What brought you into the field of theater, and how did you find your way to directing?
In theater or performing arts, I've never done anything else. I was that kid that always knew I wanted to be in part of performing arts. So, you know, how children sometimes try to find themselves. I always wanted to do this. I think my grandmother, I was raised by my grandmother. She's 97, and we FaceTime, talk every day. And I'm from Arkansas, and Little Rock, Arkansas, and she is a pianist. And she's a part of politics, part of Arkansas Hall of Fame. And so she exposed me to the arts, and I remember the first thing seeing was a production of Oklahoma that I fell in love with. And she, as a music teacher, this is old school, tell me a little bit about my age. They were playing records in the schools, and so I begged her to bring. It was portable record players that the teachers could have to bring, and she would bring the record player home for me to listen to the record of Oklahoma. And since then, I've been so interested in story as a director, a performer, and a writer, just a creator of story. That's how it all started.
And how did you want to talk a little bit about how your relationship with the Globe began? We had you out here for one of my favorite events of the entire year, the Powers New Voices Festival.
Power of New Voices Festival. I have to, I was riding around today, running a few errands, and Lamar Perry, whom we just talked about, he was here as, what was his title?
He was an associate producer.
Associate producer, told me about the Globe. He worked here. They invited me here to direct.
Yes, a play by Keeley Gibson called The Red and the Black.
Yes.
So if anyone happened to be at Powers New Voices, I think 2 years ago,
yeah,
maybe
two years ago, I came in and they asked me to come and direct that play, and that was my first relationship with the Globe professionally. But I had come before as just seeing the shows. Everybody knows where the Globe. This the Globe. You know what I mean? It's one of the most profound theaters in our country. So I knew about it. I dreamt about it. I researched and have at schools talked about it. To get the opportunity now to be here is a dream come true. So dreams do come true.
Well, I think that anyone who comes within Steve's orbit as a director and sees how he works with actors and sees how he is in a rehearsal room wants him to come back. So it was a very easy trip from having Steve here in the Powers New Voices Festival to see how he worked with actors, to see how smart and engaged and bright he is about how theater works, to immediately have him back to direct a show on our main stage was a very easy hop, skip, and a jump.
Thank you.
Once we knew you.
Very grateful.
I want to talk a little bit about this particular play. I had a question before the panel even started. Would you pronounce the title of the play for us?
Yes. Well, in the preface of the text, the script, the playwright gives both definitions and pronunciation. So appropriate, appropriate are the two titles for the play. So they have double meanings. And we do a little something different with our production, but the Broadway production, which I did get an opportunity to see, that definition was the show curtain.
Okay.
Yeah, it was the typed two definitions of and pronunciations of the word. So those are the two titles.
All right, so if you want, we can talk a little bit about how those two meanings resonate through the play. What made this a play that you particularly were interested in directing?
As I said, I'm from Arkansas. So first of all, it took place in my home state. So I was interested in the voice of Arkansas. But then I often say that plays tell you what they are about. So when I go and analyze a play, I'm looking for it through analysis to tell me what it's about. And I look to the end of the play and see what happens at that point and how and why did we get there. So I think, and that kind of tells us. And in this play, its controlling idea that through analysis was that when you don't take accountability and when you undealt with trauma can sever the familiar ties that bind. That was my controlling idea, because you had this family. By the end, if I give it a value, positive, I'm hoping I'm spoiling it. Spoiler alert.
Oh, can I ask before you spoil too
Yeah.
much? Spoil away.
Okay.
I love a spoiler. I love a
Okay.
spoiler. How many folks have seen the play already?
See, I
a
don't need to
few,
say
a
much.
few. How many are seeing it tonight? Okay.
I'm not going to spoil it. Y'all, I'm not going to spoil it. Well, I will
Just
say, but
leave
I'm,
hints
yes,
that they can
I'm
then
glad
unpack
that
later.
that you can read in program. It is saying that is what this is about. And I think that, again, when you don't take accountability and undealt with trauma leads to the severed ties of familiar bonds. So, based off the play. What was I going to say about that? So yeah, that's it. That's the controlling idea.
Yeah, and I know you had a chance to speak with Branden Jacobs-Jenkins
Yes.
at some point before you started the process.
Yes.
How was that conversation? Was there anything that Branden said about the play that intrigued you or surprised you?
Not surprised. He's very kind. He's very generous. He has roots in Arkansas as well, hence where the play takes place. So we had that in common, both having roots in Arkansas. He was excited about the Globe doing the play, and we just vibed. He was just a good person. We were just talking about art in general. He's super smart and loves the theater and the power of dramatic art. So we were talking more macro things about my coming and to direct his work, and we hope we can be in the same room at some point, sometime soon. Yeah.
Awesome. I love talking about the controlling idea of a play. It's such to me, one of those cool director things that directors do when they analyze how a play works. And one of the other things that I think is super cool directing thing that a lot of directors do is they look at the opening image of the play and the closing image of the play.
Correct.
And talk about how that changes. And so I wonder if you could talk a little bit about the set and what its importance is and how that design process came to be.
So I usually do my own work, spend time with the play, analyze, read it, do any rabbit hole of research that I do for myself, and then I go to my production team. I generally start with scenic first, because to me, they create the frame in which we will play, the world in which we will play the play. So, and going with Arnold, our scenic designer, it's our first time, second time. We have another show coming up at another theater, East Coast, 2 shows this spring. But I gave him the controlling idea. But my thing, the set needed to represent. It was a plantation, and I needed it actual size. I was because to me, it represents the familiar ties that bind are not only interpersonal, our blood family, it is our nation as a family, our species as a family, the international family in our globe that we have. I think it goes from micro to macro of what that family is. And any time in any system of a family, when there's undealt with trauma and we do not take accountability for actions, it will equal into a demise or erosion of the family. And I needed the set to represent all that. So when you see it, he was like, oh, that's great. So just the mere size, when you see it, of this plantation home is actual size when you see it on stage. It represents, I look for breadcrumbs in the set, because not only he did a lot of research of plantations in the South, and there were often murals in the homes, and look to the mural on the set when you go see it because he knew I wanted to not only represent the Lafayette home in the South, are America, United States. It's embedded in the mural, the three branches of government. Find them. They're
I love
in
that. You
the
have a homework assignment
yeah,
for the show.
it's in the design of the set. You'll see them there. It's like, where's Waldo? Where are the three branches of government on this set? They're there. So yeah.
When I walk into a theater and I see a giant family home as the set of the play, I immediately imagine that I am in for a particular genre of play, which is, in my mind, American family drama.
Correct.
And I know that was something that Branden really wanted to play with in the text of the play. Could you talk a little bit about American family drama and how it's playing out in this play or inspired by other plays that are similar?
Absolutely. He was inspired by things like August Osage County, A Raisin in the Sun. I'm trying to think what more American.
George Tennessee Williams, Cat on a Hot Tin Roof.
Yes. Those plays. He wanted to write a big family drama, and give a kind of nod and wink to that genre in American literature, and with its success. And what's interesting, I think, about this play, you have a Southern black writer writing an all-white family. What was brilliant about it is that his nuance and humanity and care, even for this Lafayette family that if I did not know Branden, I would not have thought that. You know what I mean? I would have known there's nothing in this play that would have indicated that a man of color wrote it. You know what I mean? From a Southern, from the South. So, and I know at the Tony Awards, he talked about his his personal family was pure fodder for what we're seeing on stage. He's like, I have plenty of inspiration from my own family. So that makes it sublime, right? That is so familiar. Even when I watched this play, I was like, oh Lord, I feel like I went through that just Christmas. You know what I mean? So we all have.
Hopefully not all of this.
No, not all of it. Not all of it. But just the complexities of figuring out family, and a lot of times what we find this is not a spoiler, but it's kind of, we're in a world where the patriarch or the matriarch may pass, and that kind of sometimes the event that brings us together as family, death, and things just start to unveil themselves, or like the cicadas in the play, which another theme you'll see. I challenge you to find the cicadas on the set too. They're there. Reveal themselves. They will come to surface and force us to confront, those things that we have hidden. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that other title of the play, that appropriate, kind of resonates through this idea of Branden Jacobs-Jenkins taking the American family drama and saying, I get to write this too.
Yeah. And having ownership of it in a way. And I love what he speaks about, the larger themes about us as a country. Because I believe right now that message is more important than ever, about that if we do not take accountability for our history and we do not deal with undealt with trauma as a nation, we will erode ourselves. So there has to be some truth and some accountability and some acknowledgement before there's evolution and reconciliation. But we gotta, and part of that is talking to each other. We have to have space that conversations can happen. And I'm hoping that when people see the play, I love theater because it's present and emotional. Because we could sit here and talk about themes now, but it's nothing like experiencing together in the dark of theater when lights go down, and we collectively use our imagination, and through the performance of actors, we get an opportunity to witness and experience. That would engage our conversations, at intermission, afterwards. Hopefully next week, you're still talking about this play. And he has a way of activating and impacting theater goers in a way that's visceral. I promise you will feel tonight. It's no way through his writing and what he does that he evokes emotion and thought out of you. And he does it so brilliant in a way that's just not to get a rise out of you. You know what I mean? Some movies, film, theater stories do that. Shock for shock's sake. He does it in order to have conversations and hopefully to unite us. So I really, again, admire him and his writing. Mm-hmm.
I love that.
Yeah.
And speaking of feeling over the course of the play, this is an amazing cast who will take you in their capable hands on this emotional journey. I mean, if you saw August Osage County, if you've seen Dividing the Estate, if you've seen any of these great Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, any of these great American family dramas that Branden Jacobs-Jenkins is locating himself as somebody who gets to take up space in this sort of quintessentially American genre. You will go on a ride with these actors. What were you looking for when it came to putting together a cast for the play, and what is exciting for you about this particular cast?
This cast is, in my career, I told them this today, and I'm not saying this because I'm just to say this. They're one of the best cast I've ever had the opportunity to work with. I mean, Steve Kazee, Maggie Lacey. I mean, these are people at the top of their craft. You have Tony Award-winning artists on stage, multiple nominations for Tony. So these people are these artists are at the top of their craft and are passionate about the state of the world today and using our art to hold conversation and impact community. I told them, welcome, you're an activist, whether you want it to be or not. And they got on board and said that's what they wanted to do, you know, especially being here in California during the time of the fires, because I'm from the East Coast, so this was new for me. It impacted our, right, I mean, it's so funny. I came into rehearsal one day, I'm like, oh my, you know, because I'm coming from Pennsylvania, you know, below 2, and I'm going, oh my gosh, the Santa Ana winds. It's gonna be warm. That's great. And then everybody, I got that response. They were like, no, that's not good. And I was like, no. And I was like, no, that's bad. You know, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. You know, I did not know. And then I was able to experience what the danger of that was since I've been here. But it did impact our cast. But yet they still, though, cast member had to remove their family from LA and bring up here. They were worried sometimes in rehearsal about their homes, their neighborhood homes, their friends' home. They knew people who had been impacted, yet still they came to rehearsal voluntarily, showing up, wanting to be a part of this story and have an impact on this community as we are embracing the world that we are in now. Yeah.
I mean, I feel like watching this play as an audience member, I feel like this is a tough play for actor to carry because they go on from, you know, it's also very funny. Yeah. So they have to be very funny. They have to go from these sort of small, casual scenes to the absolute intensities of emotion that family can bring out of you, I think. Yeah. And so it feels like a heavy lift that they just do sort of in a Herculean, muscular kind of a way.
And this is old school play, 3 acts. You know what I mean? A lot of contemporary plays do not write in this structure anymore. You know,
it might be appropriating.
Yeah,
a bit of that old-timey structure.
This is old school big play, and they conquered it. And I'm so proud of the material and what the work. And I'm excited for you to see excellence because that's what they're doing on stage, just excellence.
I've heard not ever to work with children, but you have taken on a play in which you have to work with children.
Yeah, twins. So there's a small child in the play. Ainsley is probably 10 years old in the play, and young man, and we have twins. And so one night one goes on, one night the other goes on. And so, you're right. And so they were in your Christmas show, Dr. Seuss.
How the Grinch Stole Christmas.
So they're not new to the theater, you know, they told me. And but they were great and cute and game. But when you watch the play, imagine now when I told you about the kids, what conversations were being had with 10-year-olds. Because they were in the play as well with the themes that you're going to see that happen in the play. So, and it's dealing with American history. But in that part of our history of our country, especially Southern history, beginning to, and their mother was great, and it opened up conversation, but the little boys were great to have this conversation about America and our history. So it was
Well,
cool.
when we go back to that other meaning of appropriate, there's a lot of conversation in the play because there is a child and there are two other teenage characters in the play about what's appropriate for them.
Yep. And when is it appropriate to talk about, or if it is at all appropriate? Should we get rid of altogether? You know what I mean? The history of our country. But I just believe that it will resurface if we don't deal with it and have the conversation. So, the kids are great. You're enjoying. They're very cute.
But it's fascinating to have happening, I think, a little bit in rehearsal some of what's happening in the play, because there is a conversation in the play about what elements of this family's history are appropriate for the 8 or 10-year-old to know about, or for the 13-year-old to know, or for the 17-year-old to know.
Yes.
And then to be sitting in rehearsal and being like, does that child actor know?
That's what I would be. I was like, okay, we're living the play right now. How do we do this? You know what I mean?
I'm like, not my job to ask. Do you understand about the history of the Ku Klux Klan in the United States?
It is like,
no.
You know what I mean? But yes, we had a teacher that the Globe is great in taking care of not only the actors and the young and old, because this history does evoke emotion and feeling. So what was so strange, because it's not like we're dealing with Dr. Seuss is great, we love it, but it's not it's Dr. Seuss. But then you really dealing with the impact of our country's history that we're still grappling with. So it was challenging at times, and to these artists, they're human beings, to have to come into the room and live through this stuff every day. But the Globe was really great. They have people involved. Camila?
She your studio teacher?
Yeah, no. Here, DEI.
Jamila.
Jamila, sorry. Jamila, great. The Globe gave us resources. The kids had their teacher, and we often would have conversations about history in our rehearsal. It was important to me. I have a theory, people before plays. So I believe in the well-being. If you ask artists to live this stuff, because that's what they're doing. They're not playing pretend. Pretend is like the set, the lights, but their performance, they're behaving truthfully. They're living it out each night, and that has an impact on you. So we would often have discussions in our rehearsal process about history, about what history we knew, which history we didn't know, how it impacted us, and how we wanted to use this art to evolve and inform and bring us together.
And it's interesting about this play too, because not just for children. I think at the Globe and at any regional theater, we always have conversations about what material is appropriate, right? Like, is the sexual content, when people in the play talk about sexual matters, is that appropriate for our audience? Is the language, is if there's cussing in the play, is that appropriate for our audience? And so to have Branden taking this play and really going, where do we make ourselves uncomfortable? And where do we cross a line about something that is inappropriate, or where are we just having to face something that we don't want to face? It's a really interesting question.
And what's brilliant, he used comedy. We're talking about heavy issues here, but it's funny. You know what I mean? He uses comedy in order to open our discourse, which is great, because we can sometimes laugh at the absurdity, sometimes laugh at the humor, but the laughter allows us to really reconsider and look again at ourselves.
I love that. Will you talk a little bit more about respect?
I always say respect. Sungu is a playwright out of New York. He really brought it to me, and I loved it. He talked about we should respect each other. And again, the breakdown of the word again, spect, look again. So we challenge our audience to look again, respect one another, respect each other. Yeah, look again. Again, look.
I do want to have time for you guys to ask some questions. So does anyone have an immediate question?
In your work as a professor at Penn State, do you get to cast students in the department? You get to select students in the department? Or do you meet them on day one for the first time and then begin to mold their craft?
We have an audition process. So I'm head of the MFA directing program now. I've been at Penn State University for 19 years. I'm a tenure full-time professor there. And I once was head of the acting, then I moved to MFA directing. But we have an audition process that we have. We recruit, have an audition process. They come to the school, they present material, we look at resumes and experience, and we have interviews. So they're vetted and interviewed before we accept. Like my directing program, we only accept 2 a year. So, and we do it every other year. Yeah, so, and it's fully paid for. We pay them to go to school and give them housing and everything. So it's a really lucrative program, but it's highly vetted. Yes.
What did you see just as the points of connection between your work as a teacher and your work as an artist, as a director? How do you see overlap between those two?
I'm very proud that I get to do the overlap and expose students to the now of our business and what's happening. So at this time, we weren't able to do it. We didn't. But usually, and the Globe would have been open to, and we talked to Barry about in the future doing some exchange. But I usually, because especially with the directing program, I'll only have 2 students every other year. They usually come to me. So those students, all the names she read, all those students have been there. They come to all those theaters. They get an opportunity to sit in a professional tech. They get an opportunity to meet with some of the our country's leading playwrights, have dinner, talk about art, their work, get to see it. So it's real practicum, real time into what they want to do. And I think it's priceless to be able to, and most theaters have been very accommodating and want to extend that education to the future of this business. So I love that I'm able to bring real time, real world experience introductions to them that hopefully they can cultivate relationships on their visits that will last them throughout their career. So that's what I love, the intersection between.
Wonderful. I know we had some questions here in the middle aisle if we want to.
Hello.
Hi, I'm so excited to see your show next week. You mentioned some of the Easter eggs that are already there in the set.
Yes.
I'm really into lighting. Do you have any Easter eggs I should watch for in the lighting?
Yes. Alan is our lighting designer. There's some cues that I love lighting and scoring music of plays like film. That's what I like. I always tell my team, treat it like a film. And then we'll pull back for the theater. You know what I mean? Go for it. You know what I mean? So, but we can be a little bit more theatrical, whereas if you're doing film, it's more naturalism. Theatricality allows us, that's the beauty of it, to heighten it a bit. So there's some imagery and sound and lighting that enhance our storytelling that are hidden as well. Yes.
I'm curious because this is a big set.
Yeah.
And that is not only a challenging opportunity for the actors, like to get, like, you know what I mean? You're like going upstairs,
It's huge.
you're covering all this space, and
Huge.
I think the same thing for lighting. It's like, how do you bring a very big space to life in a textured, 3-dimensional way,
Yeah.
as opposed to just being like,
Lights on, lights off. Yes. I love our lighting design. I'll tell you one little trick thing that I love. You'll notice it at the opening of the play, it's nighttime. It's night. And as they arrive, the beginning of the play, you probably won't think about it, but I just know it's happening. The lighting designer, put our eyes in their eyes. So if I were to go in a dark room, it takes a moment for my eyes to adjust. And then slowly, as I get used to the dark, my eyes can iris out. Exactly. That's what happens. So you get to take the journey through the eyes of the people who first enter the house first. I love it because when you go, it's pure only moonlight through these huge plantation windows. But as they walk in the dark, slowly, everywhere they went, they go, the set gets illuminated based off of as their eyes adjust. I mean, those are like little lighting things that are
great Easter egg to look for. I love that. Did you end up getting to visit any plantation homes as you were preparing for the show?
Yes, I went to, this is my second play about a plantation home. That's interesting. Only one in Arkansas. I went to Thomas Jefferson's home. Because,
Monticello?
Yeah, I went to Monticello. And because I was last at the Public, I did Sally and Tom. about that. So I actually went and was able to see the size. And I've seen them in Arkansas before, just in the South. If you've been, those homes are huge. You know what I mean? It was just massive homes. And then when you see a plantation, the size of them were very impressive. So I truly wanted, and I thank you for the Globe for going along and saying yes, that they really helped us realize that the actual thing is on stage. Yes.
When you say big, I keep feeling monumentality, which is something I understand from having been in the Tidewater, Maryland.
Yeah.
But monumentality is not something I think of often here in Southern California. So I'm curious, how does the size of the set shape the souls of the people who are walking around in it and finding their way in a very different kind of space than we're used to?
Yeah, I think that's the story, and how they find their way in that size. That's the story, and especially having to come back home to that, because they've been generation by generation slowly separated from it, and then having through the death of a patriarch required to come back. And how do you move in that space? How do you? They find that out in the play. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's wonderful too. That's such a bright question, because it's like 7 generations of the family have lived in this home, and these people are, as they sell the home and as it leaves the family, there's like Souls is right. There's a graveyard. Right. There are multiple graveyards.
Multiple graveyards.
Right on this property. So the souls of the people is a like literal question, I would say.
Yeah, and a character in the play.
Not metaphorical.
They're present. They're present in the play.
Absolutely. And to the question of, I think, coming back to what does this monument, what is it a monument to? Who is it celebrating? And how are these people in this moment who are finally divesting of this property, what is their responsibility to what is in this house, to what this house is now, to what this house has been, to what this house will be in the future?
Yeah.
Very, very complicated. We have time for a couple more questions. Yes, another one here in the aisle, if we can.
Just wondering, does the diversity of the audience have any bearing on how you're going to direct the play?
Okay.
That's a really good question. My instinct was to say it's two-part. I love a diverse audience because to me, that furthers the conversation, right? However, when I'm directing, I'm hoping that the audiences are diverse, and I'm thinking about the impact on the audience, but I don't know if yes. Yes. I mean, I was thinking. Oh, absolutely. Yes, I'm thinking about that. I'm thinking like, who is our audience? Who will this impact? Will it communicate? And how can I be as specific as possible that the story communicates? I'm always thinking that. I'm going, what? And this is the San Diego. I said that a lot in rehearsal. The San Diego community. I believe what my job is a service job. I'm in service of artists. I'm in service of community. And yes, I take the community in mind when I go visit in their home. This is your home, and I want to take care of your home as I've been invited. So I do, like I would go in anybody's home, take care and be in consideration of whose home I'm a part of.
Other questions for Steve? Yes, please. Oh, now it's an auction in here. Once your hand has gone up, it's sold. Sorry.
Wow. This is rather impulsive. Looking at this audience, how do you feel about the composition of this audience, seeing your theater, and what are we doing to broaden it so that it's broader than just us?
Great. What the theater is doing, I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure there are initiatives in place.
Yes, I will point you to our social justice roadmap.
Yes.
It is located on the website. We are in phase 4 of 4
Yes.
phases.
And I think part of that initiative is having me here. Part of that initiative is doing this play by Branden Jacobs-Jenkins to broaden the work that is being offered, broadens the people who want to come and see themselves on stage, right? But interesting enough, this family is all white. You know what I mean? Exactly. However, the members of color are there in spirit and in conversation and in the fabric of the home, which was interesting. I was talking to a cast member, and we were saying that the enslaved probably built the home. Right. So, watch, the 3 branches of government, they're there. And we wanted this house to represent that. And so, within the fabric of the wood, one of the characters talks about that. Within the metal, it's all there. So, yes, so this play hopefully fosters conversation, diversity, and encourages people to go and invite others, because it's all of us are here. This is an American story that we all need to be privy to and have conversations about.
I mean, I think it's an interesting question, too, for a playwright like Branden Jacobs-Jenkins, who, there is kind of a, I don't want to say it's a tradition. There is a gesture that often BIPOC or writers of color will make, where they write a play with a predominantly white cast. Like, I think about Larissa Fasthorse, who wrote the Thanksgiving play. And so there's a sort of gesture, which is, I know this work is going to predominantly white institutions. I know that the regional theater, the American regional theater, for the most part, is got a majority white audience. And I'm writing that knowing, and in fact using a structure that the predominantly white audience is very familiar with. That predominantly white audience probably got programmed all across Osage County. Ours did. You know what I mean? And so it's very much inserting himself into the space in a very intentional way, and using an all-white cast in a very intentional way, and knowing that probably the makeup of the audience would be what the makeup of the audience is. And I think that the Globe is very committed and has gone through a lot of effort over the last years to really turn out a different audience, not a different audience, but also a broader audience, I'll say, to widen the invitation. And that happens at all phases of the work that we do, from the artists that are on the stage to the people on the plaza who are welcoming you in as you come to see a show. It's a multi-pronged approach that we can't just do by programming, and we can't just do by broadening the people who work here. So, but yeah, it's part of the conversation, I think, the ongoing conversation, for sure. I'm glad you asked your impulsive question.
What's the time frame of the story? And that's the first question. And the second would be, do the actors reflect the mindset of that time?
Reflect the mindset of the time the play is set.
It's contemporary. It's specifically set in 2011. Yes, they reflect that mindset. That's interesting, because even in some of the choices and things that we have evolved to as a country in 2011 hadn't quite been there yet. We've come, some new ideology that it was interesting for us to go, woo, we've come a long way, because you couldn't say that now. You would, you know what I mean? That wouldn't be tolerated, or those comments or those gestures. It's 2011, you know what I mean? But it gave hope, because we've come a long way, but they still have a long way to go, because some of those same things have remained the same, So yes,
This play has an interesting production history, because it really premiered first in 2014, and it had a regional theater life, and then it sort of found a new burst of life in 2024. It had its Broadway premiere, and Branden Jacobs-Jenkins was able to go back and do a lot of revision for the Broadway production. So he was able to revisit a piece that he had written several years ago, which is always, I think, a blessing for a playwright to be able to do that, to go back and say, what have I learned from having done this play now several times? And so we're doing the 2024 version of this play, as opposed to his original 2014 imagination of what the play was. Are there any significant differences that you notice, or just a tightening and a
Tightening
reworking?
of his work. Yeah, the tightening of it. Yeah.
Is there anything else you'd like to send this group who's about to walk into the play with? So many of us about to go see the play.
Look for the Easter eggs. And I just hope that it spawns conversation. I think especially, as I open the New York Times, or I have it sent to my phone every day, I'm just like, we need this conversation more now than ever. And our familiar bond is very fragile. Don't take it for granted. It's very fragile. And we must take accountability and visit the trauma that all of us have experienced in some way or the other in order for us to continue to evolve and be our best selves. So I'm hoping that you continue the conversation. I hope it inspires you to tell more people to come. They must see and have an impact on this community in a positive way. And thank you for having me.
Thank you. Well, I just want to say in closing that you'll find that the production features some difficult conversations, some difficult issues, but it is really infused with a spirit of warmth and humor and generosity that I think you've seen from our guests tonight. So thank you so much, Steve, for joining us.
Thank you.